Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my first channel Senate election prediction. Now in the Senate, Republicans have the majority. It is a 53-45 majority, but it's technically 53-47, but two independents, Bernie Sanders and I think King from Maine. Caucus was Democrats, but they're independents. But their vote all the time, I believe was Democrats. So it's 53-47. So during this election, we had 30 Republicans not running and 35 Democrats not running. Senators have a 6-year term. Every 6 years, they go up for another election. If you remember, in 2014 was a red wave year, and this is the year the Republicans took back the United States Senate. So this is the class where the Republicans won the Senate. So there's going to be a lot of Republicans up for re-election. I believe that year they gained 8 seats, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 8. So I guess let's get into it. So I'm going to start with our safe Republican states: Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Alaska. Now you probably wonder why some states are not safe Republican. We'll get back to those later. Now our safe Democrat states: Oregon, Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Illinois. Those are our safe Democrat states. But I just want to talk about one thing. In Massachusetts, there is a pretty competitive primary. Now, Ed Markey is a Democrat incumbent from Massachusetts, and he's in and Joe Kennedy III, who's a House of Representatives from Massachusetts, is in the Massachusetts Democratic primary. I don't know. I guess I'll talk about it into a later video, but we'll just get back to that one in a later video. So, with our safe states, Democrats have 41 seats and Republicans have 41 seats. Now, for our likely seats. I'm going to begin with our Democrats. So, Virginia. Now, Virginia could be a safe Democrat state. Virginia is trending heavily blue, and Mark Warner, I believe, is a fairly popular incumbent. I believe that's the senator running for re-election. I don't think it's Tim Kaine. So Mark Warner is fairly popular. He's probably going to win about 14 to 15 points. And maybe a month I could change it to safe, but I don't know at this point. Don't know. Our next safe Democrat state is Minnesota. Now, in 2018, Minnesota had a special election. It was now Tina Smith won that election, the Democratic person, and now she's running for a full 6-year term. Tina Smith is probably going to win it by a pretty good, comfortable margin, and maybe in the future it could be more competitive, but I don't believe at this time, because I still believe that Minnesota is trending Democrat, as with the rest of the Rust Belt. No, my bad. No, it's trending Republican as the rest of the Rust Belt. What was I saying? So, probably can get more competitive in the future. Our next elected Democrat state is New Mexico. Now, people are probably why I'm not characterizing New Mexico as a safe Democrat state, and here's why. New Mexico is a open seat. And in past elections, when New Mexico has an open seat, the race is usually much closer. Like, closer for, like, New Mexico. It's probably, like, around 9 to 10 points. And I believe Ben Ray Yulon is the Democrat person. He's probably going to win around 9 to 10 points, I'm predicting. So that's probably how it's going to go. And our final likely Democrat state is Colorado. Now, Colorado is an interesting one. In 2014, Cory Gardner beat the Democrat incumbent. He won it very close, like very, very close. Now, from 2014 to now to 2020, Colorado has trended heavily Democrat, like very Democrat. So Cory Gardner still could win. He has an incumbent advantage, but it's Colorado now. And his Democratic challenger is former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper, who is a fairly popular incumbent governor. Well, he can't run now because of term limits, I believe, but he's a Democrat challenger, and he's probably going to win it, so it's a likely Democrat flip. And that's about it. No, my bad. One more state, New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire, Republicans had a chance in New Hampshire, but they didn't take it. They didn't have many, I guess, like, strong candidates in New Hampshire as they do in other states. So Jeanine Shaheen, which I believe is a Democrat incumbent, is probably going to win by a likely margin. It could be safe, but it's probably likely. Now that's about it for my Democrat likely states. Now for a Republican likely state. Certain state of Texas. Now, Texas, in the 2018 midterms, Ted Cruz won his re-election against Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke came very close in like 2 points. I believe Beto O'Rourke visited every county in Texas. Now, if you've seen a Texas county map, there's a lot of counties, like a lot. There's like little squares everywhere. But John Cornyn, who's the Republican incumbent, is probably going to win by a likely margin. He's not Ted Cruz. He's more of a moderate candidate or senator, actually. So he's probably going to win by a likely margin. And the Democrats are not running as strong as a candidate as Beto O'Rourke was, so it's likely Republican. Our next likely Republican state is Kentucky. Now you're probably wondering why Kentucky is likely. Because during the presidential, it's very heavily safe Republican. But Mitch McConnell is one of the most disapproved senators in the United States Senate. Now, Mitch McConnell is running against Amy McGrath. Amy McGrath, I think it's a strong candidate, but she's probably not going to win, even though Mitch McConnell is very disapproved of. But again, it's Kentucky, and Kentucky is heavily Republican. I believe it used to be a bellwether in the early 2000s, but now it's one much further Republican. Another likely Republican state is South Carolina. Now, it could be a safe Republican state. During the presidential, I have it safe. Some people have it likely, but I have it safe. I believe Lindsey Graham is going to win re-election. Now, some polls have his Democratic challenger up. I'll take those with a grain of salt. It's South Carolina. Even though I believe it's trending blue, it's still South Carolina. It's going to be a Republican state still in 2020 and probably in 2024. So Lindsey Graham does win re-election. It could be safe. I could put it like in a June prediction as safe Republican, but at the point, I'm going to put it as likely. Another likely Republican state is Alabama. You probably wonder why this is not safe Republican. Well, if you remember in 2017, there was a special election against Doug Jones and Roy Moore. Doug Jones barely won that election, but it was extremely low turnout. Like, Doug Jones got less votes than Hillary Clinton, I believe. So, in the end, the Republican challenger is probably going to win, probably by a safe margin. And that's either going to be the former Attorney General used to have the Senate seat, Jeff Sessions, or former Auburn coach Tommy Tuberville. I believe that Tommy Tuberville is gonna win the Republican primary and beat Jeff Sessions. So that's about it. So Tommy Tuberville is probably gonna beat Doug Jones. It's a likely Republican flip. So Republicans gain a seat and Democrats gain a seat. My last Republican likely state is Georgia, the regular Georgia election. In Georgia, there's two elections, but I'll get back to the other one. For now, the regular one is against Senator David Perdue and Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff. If you remember, Jon Ossoff did run in the Georgia 6th special election in 2017. He did lose to Karen Handel, who Karen Handel lost to Lucy McBath in 2018. Now Karen Handel is running back for a seat in 2020. But now in Georgia, there's some polls, like most recent polls, came out Jon Ossoff was up by 2 points, 1 point. I'll take those with a grain of salt. It's Georgia. David Perdue is pretty popular. He's probably gonna win. So that's for our likely states. So believe I don't miss anyone. Yeah. So now we're at 46. Now we're going to go for our lean states. Starting in the state of Kansas. Now, first of all, you're probably wondering why Kansas was not a safe Republican state. Well, let me tell you why. Chris Kobach is the presumptive Republican nominee for Kansas. Now, if you remember, in 2018, Kansas had their governor election, where the Democrat won the election, and Chris Kobach was the Republican nominee, and he lost. And now he's running for the Senate. Chris Kobach is probably not the strongest candidate, but still, he's probably going to win. Trump is on the ticket. Kansas is very Republican. He's probably going to boost him up and carry him over the top. So I think Chris Kobach is still going to win, but not by much. Our next state for lean Republican is Iowa. Ernst is running for re-election. Joni Ernst, I don't believe is very popular, but still, Iowa's been trending heavily Republican. She's more on the conservative side, but Iowa's been trending heavily Republican. Iowa went for Trump by 10 points. Even though it went for Barack Obama both times in 2012 and 2016, it's trended more Republican, especially with the rural areas. So I do believe with Donald Trump on the ticket, it's going to help Joni Ernst go over the top. Now for our next lean Republican state, it's the state of Georgia. Special election. Now Georgia is having a special election. Now in Georgia, they have something called a jungle primary. Now, the primary is not on the regular June 9th primary here in Georgia. It is on November 2nd, 2020, which is also the election day. In the jumbo primary, every candidate is in the race. It's kind of like in California, where they have jumbo primaries. So if the candidate reaches 50%, then that candidate will be elected to the Senate for 2 years until he has to run for the full term in 2022 for the 6 years. So, but there are two Republicans going head and head, and that's incumbent appointed Senator Kelly Loeffler against very strong Republican challenger Doug Collins. If you remember, Doug Collins was famous in the impeachment stuff because he does represent Georgia's 9th Congressional District. He was the House Judiciary Committee ranking member, and he was also like the debate man on the House floor during impeachment. So he has a lot of name recognition. So that's a pretty interesting race. But in Georgia, they have polls showing the Democrats up against both Doug Collins and Kelly Loeffler. I'll take those with a grain of salt. Doug Collins is probably going to win this, probably around 3 to 5%. It could be Kelly Loeffler against Doug Collins in January 5th for the runoff election, or a Democrat against Doug Collins. But the Democrats are probably not going to win this. And that's it for my lean Republican states. My lean Democrat states is Arizona. Now in Arizona, Governor Doug Ducey appointed Senator Martha McSally. Martha McSally ran for the Senate in 2018 against now Senator Kyrsten Sinema, and she lost. She's not fairly popular, and Democrats are running a pretty strong candidate named Mark Kelly. He's an astronaut. He's pretty moderate except on guns, but he's pretty popular. But polls have him up by, I believe the Real Clear Politics average has him up by 9 points. Some have it up 11. I'll take those with a grain of salt. It's not going to be that broad. It's not going to be that broad. It's probably going to be closer. No, it's not going to be closer. I don't know if it's going to be closer because it is a presidential election year and Arizona's been trending heavily Democrat. But Mark Kelly is probably going to win it, and it's probably a lean Democrat flip. And that's it for my lean states. So Republicans are at 49 and Democrats are at 47. Now for my tilt states. My first tilt Republican state is Montana. Now you probably know why Montana is not safe Republican. It's tilt Republican. Probably wondering why. Well, here, Montana does like to do split tickets. On the presidential side, they're heavily Republican. Everything else, they're toss-up. In 2018, incumbent Democrat Senator Jon Tester was reelected and went back to the United States Senate. So they are known for electing Democrats. And now Republican incumbent Senator Steve Daines is running for re-election against former Democrat Montana Governor Steve Bullock. Now Steve Bullock is probably the most, strongest candidate for Montana Senate election. In the end, I do believe Steve Daines is going to win because, again, it's a presidential election year, not a midterm. And Donald Trump's probably going to carry him over the top. Next state is North Carolina. North Carolina is going to be very close. Very close. Incumbent Senator Thom Tillis, which is a Republican, is running against Democrat challenger Cal Cunningham. Now, I do believe Thom Tillis is going to win at the end of the race because Donald Trump is leading in the polls in North Carolina. I don't think it's going to be that close, or maybe actually, but Donald Trump is leading, and Donald Trump is probably going to carry Thom Tillis over the top and beat Cal Cunningham. That's my personal analysis. Now, the last two states are very hard to predict. It's one of the hardest. So let me start in Maine. So in Maine, they had incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins, probably one of the most moderate senators ever elected to the United States Senate. She's going against Democrat challenger Sarah Gideon, who was former Speaker of the House of Maine and I believe Democrat leader in Maine. Now, Susan Collins, before this past couple of years, won in landslides, except her first election in 1996. She won almost every county, I believe, in 2014. But this time it's not going to happen because she did vote for a couple votes I don't say is so controversial, like Brett Kavanaugh and the impeachment vote. She did vote to acquit not guilty of Donald Trump on both articles of impeachment and confirmed Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court. So, but still, at the end of the day, she's very moderate. She's very bipartisan. She can work along the aisles. I did believe she made a fair change during the United States Senate impeachment inquiry, like the making the rules for how it's going to work, the trial. But I still think she's going to win. They say she's one of the most least popular senators. She's either with there and Mitch McConnell, but still she's very bipartisan. So I still think she's going to win. Michigan is probably the hardest one out of them all. Incumbent Senator Gary Peters is running against a very good Republican challenger, John James. Now, John James ran for the Senate in 2018 against Debbie Stabenow. He did pretty well. Did pretty well in the suburban areas, not as well in the rural areas, but still, he did pretty well. But he still lost. And Debbie Stabenow is a strong candidate than Gary Peters. Now, in Michigan, most people have never heard of Gary Peters before. It's kind of like not many people know him, which can hurt you and help you at the same time. Like, people don't know you, so that means they don't have a bad feeling about you. And people just don't know you, and you have that lack of name recognition, which John James does have. But at the end of the day, I do believe Gary Peters is going to win because he does have the incumbent advantage. But it's very close. John James is a very strong candidate. And I believe I could change this anytime. I could probably maybe change it next month if something happens and if I feel something different. So, at the end of the day, Republicans are going to have 52 seats and Democrats are going to have 48 seats. Democrats gained 2 seats, one in Colorado and one in Arizona, while Republicans gained 1 seat in Alabama, which means it's a net Democrat gain of 1. Republicans will hold the majority in 2020 by 52 to 48. So thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notification, and look at my other videos if you want to know more about politics. So I guess I'll see you guys in the future.